Since the day Tim Walz and Kamala Harris lost the 2024 election, the Minnesota governor has been making serious moves towards the 2028 presidential election. We know that Tim Walz has his eyes set on the 2028 Democrat presidential primary. And now, 8 months after his loss, as Kamala Harris's running mate in the 2024 election, Walz has been outpacing many Democrats in his visibility and his activity. So today we are going to be breaking down what he's up to, why it matters, and what it means for the future of the Democrat Party, all up in center for you right now. But if you're new here, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. So, unlike Kamala Harris, who has been really largely quiet since the 2024 election, Tim Walz has hit the ground running. Well, Kamala Harris has retreated to California, really staying out of any spotlight. She gave one very minuscule speech to a group of Australian real estate agents. She sent a video in, a 3-minute pre-recorded video to the California Democrat Convention. That completely opposite of what Tim Walz has been doing. Now, reportedly, Kamala Harris is also weighing a 2026 gubernatorial run in California, or even stepping back from politics altogether. But Walz is crisscrossing the country, keeping his name in the headlines and keeping his name on the short list for 2028. And like we said, since November of 2024, Walz has spoken at high-profile Democrat events, including state party conventions in South Carolina and California, which he did in the same day. He's also been in states like Iowa, like Ohio, like Montana, like New Hampshire, like Illinois, getting into Republican districts, talking, holding town halls in Republican districts. And these are key early primary states. In his presence, there is no accident. In South Carolina, especially, it is critical for Democrat hopefuls, given that its role in cementing nominees like Joe Biden. We saw how Joe Biden got the nominee when Jim Clyburn coalesced the support around Biden. He won the South Carolina primary. Everyone else dropped out. Walz has also been holding town halls in Republican-leaning districts, like we said, from Montana to Iowa, trying to engage directly with voters, which has been a stark contrast, not only from Harris's limited public appearance since the 2024 election, but Harris's limited public appearance during the 2024 campaign. It's like Walz is doing the exact opposite of what Kamala Harris did during the 2024 election. The exact opposite. It is a stark contrast. And Walz is trying to position himself as a grassroots contender, that he has this grassroots support within the party. And, from someone, like I've said, my politics, I am center right. But I got to give Tim Walz credit here. He has been the most active Democrat that is seeking the 2028 nomination so far. The most active Democrat. He's not sitting around waiting for permission. He's building a national profile, while other people, like Kamala Harris, seem content to sit on the sidelines. It's the kind of proactive energy that I think conservatives often admire in their own candidates when they're getting out there. Donald Trump doing 2-3 campaign rallies a day in the final stretch of the campaign. Okay, Tim Walz is getting out there doing it. I hate his politics. I think he was a terrible governor. But look, he's getting out there. Like we said, not sitting on the sidelines, not waiting for permission. He is getting out there, doing what he needs to do. Now, point 2. Walz has a strategic messaging critique of the 2024 election. This is the second big move that he's been making. He's not just showing up, but he's also delivering a clear message to Democrats. He's been very vocal about the Democrats' failures in 2024. Going as far to admit that the Harris-Walz campaign played it very much too safe. And in a March interview with Politico, he said that they should have held more town halls, taken bigger risks to connect with voters, and just get out in front of voters in period, or in general. Like, they wanted to sit, but they wanted to play it like 2020. They wanted to do the basement strategy. 2024 was not the year for the basement strategy to work. It just wasn't. They needed to take risks. They lost with Latino voters. They lost with African American men. They lost with almost every single demographic of voters because they were not willing to take a risk to get out and connect with voters. And he's shown that he's trying to learn from some of those mistakes. Obviously, he's still making all the mistakes on the policy front, but the actual action plan, you can see he's actually doing something a little different. But he's also working in on the biggest group of people that the Democrats missed out on, working class voters. he's actually put up a halfway decent argument, arguing that Democrats lost ground with these working class voters by failing to address their economic pain. And at the California Democrat Convention in June, he warned that the party could become, quote, roadkill if it doesn't reconnect with everyday Americans. Which, this focus resonates with a lot of working class people in swing states like Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania, something that Kamala Harris did not have the knack for. She did not, her and her campaign staff did not have the knack to appeal to these voters in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, the places they needed to win if they wanted to win the election. And you know, Walz's critique, it's kind of refreshing to see him go after Democrats in his own party. You know, Democrats for a long time have been out of touch with blue-collar workers, the concerns of blue-collar workers, the anxieties of working-class Americans. They've prioritized coastal elites over heartland workers. We even saw it recently, where in Iowa, and I wonder if I can get this pulled up here. Here, you want to show that? Oh, we got to disable the ad blocker here. Hold up one second. But the reality is to show that Democrats, they might be making up with some of the rhetoric on the ground with working class voters. Clearly, they don't care. They just took away Iowa's only seat on the DNC committee that manages presidential nominating calendars. Like, they are taking away the representation of the places they need to win. They lost their single seat on the powerful Democrat National Committee Rules and Bylaws Committee that oversees setting the presidential nominating calendar. Wow, isn't that just funny? Out of touch with blue-collar Americans, and this is what they do to blue-collar Americans. But at the end of the day, no matter what Walz says, I don't think he's a serious threat to win the nomination or to even win in a general election. If he somehow sneaks out and wins the nomination, he's not winning a general. It's just not happening. But that said, his push for some more bold ideas and his really strong defense of progressive policies like DEI, like transgender rights at a Harvard talk in April are really raising questions whether he really knows what he's getting into. Most Democrats are moving to the middle, and then you have some morons like Tim Walz who in AOC who are just continuing to go to the left. They just keep going. Because you cannot win a general election unless you can balance appealing to moderates and keeping your base happy. But their base is a very rowdy base. I have a hard time seeing, you saw what happened in 2024. There was no way the Democrats were going to let Josh Shapiro be the vice presidential pick. No chance. Like, they were already walking on a tightrope, and it's an even tighter tightrope that they have to walk on. Like, that's the reality here. And Walz it's clear, he is considering a 2028 presidential run. He has said if the circumstances are right, he'll do it. He's emphasizing that he'll only run if he has the right skill set to run, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. But as of right now, he has also ruled out a 2026 Senate run in Minnesota. There's an open Senate seat there. He even went as far to say, like, he'd rather eat glass than return to Congress. But it sounds like he may be running for governor for a third term in Minnesota, which would keep him in an executive role while building his national brand. But also, we know that there's a downside to that can tie you up. Running for president and also being a governor, being an elected official, it ties you down with your day-to-day responsibilities because you also have to govern the state at the same time. Like, that's just a reality. But Walz has been getting out there. I can't criticize him for that. There's a lot of things I can criticize Tim Walz for, but I cannot criticize him for getting out there. And his ambitions, although I don't think they're the most calculated, I think maybe a little bit, they're not completely reckless. What Harris did in 2024 was reckless. He was. That was very reckless. But I don't think anyone's ran as bad of a campaign as Harris did in 2024. Like, it was truly terrible. But Tim Walz is not just going to be handed this nomination or just going to become this like thought leader in the Democrat Party overnight. Because he's not the only Democrat eyeing a 2028 bid, and there are plenty of governors who are more well qualified to just even get the nomination. People like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, they're all making moves. And Newsom and Pritzker are already hitting early primary states like New Hampshire, Pete Buttigieg, is, and even Kamala Harris could jump in, I guess you could say, Pete Buttigieg, he's getting out there in Iowa. We know Iowa was where he somehow won the Democrat caucus in 2020. But the Democrat primary is going to be crowded. And I think Walz's strength that he has here is just how active he's been. I don't buy into the idea that it's his Midwestern persona. It didn't work in 2024. Most people thought it was inauthentic. But I do think some of his biggest weaknesses are his debates, his debate performance, and his limited appeal when it comes to Southern black voters. That's the same thing with Pete Buttigieg. They're going to struggle with African American voters. And then if you look at, culturally conservative liberals in the South, that could also be a struggle. And from my vantage point right now, the Democrat field is wide open, but Walz's focus on working class issues could give him an edge. It could. But I also think there's a lot of progressive radical policies that he's put out there that do also appeal to the base, but I think would destroy him in a general election. But the bigger question is whether Walz can actually unify the Democrat Party that has been fractured, that is in pieces. He's calling for fundamental change, but I don't know if he's the guy who can bring it back together. But so what's the takeaway? Tim Walz is making bold, strategic, not even strategic, just bold moves for 2028. He's outworking many of his Democrat rivals, trying to position himself as a voice for the working class. Whether he can overcome the liabilities that are associated with him, it's like that's to be determined at this point. But his hustle is worth watching. But let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think Walz is a serious contender, or is he just overplaying his hand? Was he just the dummy that was selected in 2024? And he's like, I shouldn't even say that out loud. He's like the autistic kid who doesn't know he's autistic. It's like, if we're just being honest. But let me know your thoughts down below. Drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.